Donald Trump promised to be the man who would put an end to Washington's corruption. He vowed to expose the system, confront the powerful, and free the country from the influence of those who had always manipulated the American people. But now, as his name surfaces surrounded by scandals, silence, and political maneuvering, the same government that claimed to stand for truth seems to be transforming into the very thing it swore to destroy. The Epstein case is the cruelest reflection of this contradiction, a scandal of unimaginable proportions involving abuse, power, money, and influence that permeates the highest corridors of American politics. And once again, Donald Trump's name emerges in the middle of this quagmire, cited, mentioned, speculated about. The president who positioned himself as the swamp drainer now appears to be sinking into the same murky waters he claimed to fight. The truth is simple and brutal. Trump knows the Epstein files could destroy him politically. Not just him, but his allies, donors, and the faces that appeared at parties, on flights, and in secret lists. And what does a cornered government do? It tries to silence, it tries to hide, it tries to delay the inevitable. Mike Johnson, Trump's trusted ally, moves the pieces in silence, blocking votes, obstructing petitions, and restricting access to documents. It's a political operation of containment, and the American people, once again, are left in the dark. The rhetoric of a great America crumbles when justice must be suppressed. The government that was supposed to defend transparency now twists itself to conceal the secrets of a corrupt elite. And Trump, the man who always portrayed himself as a victim of the system, now uses that same system to protect himself. It's the same old Washington game, just with a new mask and a new slogan. Meanwhile, Americans watch in disbelief. Those who believed in his tough talk, who pounded their chests saying, "He's different," now see a government repeating the very practices it vowed to combat. The Epstein case isn't just a scandal, it's a test of morality. And so far, Trump is failing. Congress tries to act, but every attempt to release the files hits an invisible wall built by interests no one wants to admit. Politicians talk about protecting the nation, but what they're really protecting are their own allies and donors. The excuses change weekly. National security, confidentiality, procedural delays. It's all just smoke. The truth is, there's fear. Fear of names, fear of connections, fear that the myth will shatter. What's most infuriating is seeing how the promise of renewal became a performance. Trump claimed to fight for the people, but every move his government makes shows the opposite. He protects the rich, ignores the victims, and tries to bury the truth under a pile of populist rhetoric. He speaks like an outsider, but governs as part of the same closed circle that has controlled Washington for decades. And now, under public pressure to release the Epstein files, the government chooses cowardice. Let no one be fooled. What's at stake isn't just a name or a party. It's the basic principle of justice. When a government fears the truth, it has already corrupted itself. When a leader must hide the past to stay in power, he ceases to be a leader. He becomes a hostage, and that's what we're seeing. Trump is becoming a hostage to his own swamp. Americans deserve answers. They deserve to know who visited that island. They deserve to know who protected Epstein, who silenced the victims, and who benefited. But the government, the same one that promised to drain the swamp, now fights to keep it full. The truth is locked away in files, smothered by political maneuvering, and all the while the people watch, tired, frustrated, and deceived once again. Trump's promise was simple: return power to the people. But today, power seems more distant than ever. The White House has become a fortress, and the government a shield for an elite that laughs at our good faith. It's time to face the facts. The man who promised to take on the system has become the system. Now that the truth is beginning to seep through the cracks, the scale of the farce is clearer. Congress, pressured by the public, is pushing forward with a petition demanding the release of Jeffrey Epstein's files, but Trump's government is doing everything it can to block the process. The argument is always the same: legal issues, respect for procedures, preserving the integrity of the investigation. But what they really want to preserve is the president's image and that of his allies. Mike Johnson, a Trump ally and key player in this game, is using every possible procedural loophole to prevent the documents from seeing the light of day. He delayed the swearing-in of Adelita Gralva, a representative who could sign the request and secure a vote. Why? Because she would be the 218th vote, the one that would allow the case to move forward. Her electoral victory was overwhelming, with 69% of the vote. But that didn't matter. When the game threatens the interests of power, even democracy becomes disposable. And the most scandalous part is the contrast. Trump, who constantly claims to be a defender of justice and Christian values, now finds himself in the role of censor, guardian of dirty secrets. The same man who spoke of protecting children and punishing predators is trying to block an investigation that could expose some of the worst predators the world has ever seen. Predators who may have been his friends, partners, or donors. In a recent interview, Representative Ro Khanna made it clear there's a maneuver to prevent the country from knowing the true contents of these files. And the fear isn't just political, it's personal. According to him, the files contain information about billionaires, businessmen, and public figures who were part of Epstein's circle, and who now rely on the government's complicit silence for protection. But the Epstein case is just a symptom. The problem runs deeper. The Trump government is becoming a mirror of the system it promised to dismantle. It uses the same tricks, the same excuses, and the same arrogance as the old Washington elites. The difference is that now, populist rhetoric serves as a smokescreen, while Trump presents himself as the man of the people. Behind-the-scenes decisions reveal a leader concerned only with protecting his own reputation and his wealthy allies. Even a divided Congress has members trying to break this blockade. Some Republicans are feeling pressure from voters. After all, voting against the release of the Epstein files is practically a public confession of complicity. But so far, only 4 Republicans have had the courage to support the petition. 4. The rest remain silent. Fear of political retaliation speaks louder than moral conscience. And there's a detail many overlook. Even if the bill passes, Trump would still have to sign it to officially release the files. Does anyone believe he would do that, knowing his own name appears in the documents? The plan is simple. Delay the process, stall in the Senate, and if necessary, veto the bill. That's how power protects itself. But there's a calculated risk. Trump knows a veto would be a political disaster. The image of the incorruptible leader would collapse. He would be the president who blocked the truth about the biggest pedophilia and abuse scandal in modern history. That's why the government is preparing the ground for a controlled solution, releasing partial files with names redacted, edited versions, and plenty of pretty speeches about protecting victims' privacy. In reality, it would just be another performance. The real truth would remain locked away. Meanwhile, the economy sinks, the cost of living skyrockets, and public health is neglected. The government is obsessed with winning political battles and putting out PR fires, while millions of Americans struggle to pay for healthcare, electricity, and rent. Trump's promise to put the people first has become a joke. In reality, his government governs for the top, for the billionaires, for the usual suspects. And when a scandal like Epstein's emerges, one that could expose the truth about this corrupt elite, the government doesn't hesitate. It blocks, delays, and confuses. The goal is to keep the public distracted, divided, and fighting among themselves while power continues to operate in the shadows. The swamp Trump promised to drain is fuller than ever, and now he swims comfortably in it. We've reached the point where it's no longer possible to pretend this is just politics. The Epstein case is the dirtiest portrait of a government that swore to fight corruption, but now hides behind it. Donald Trump promised to break with the establishment, but he has become an essential part of it. He claimed to represent the people, but today he represents silence, fear, and power. That's what always happens when a leader forgets his purpose and gets lost in the game of convenience. The United States stands at a moral abyss. The same government that talked about cleaning up Washington now protects the darkest secrets of the elite. And make no mistake, we're not just talking about a name on a list. We're talking about an entire system of impunity, sustained by money, blackmail, and power. And when the president of the nation refuses to allow the truth to come out, he stops being a leader of justice and becomes the guardian of lies. Trump has realized this story haunts him. That's why the strategy is clear: distract, divide, create imaginary enemies, and turn the people against each other. While his base shouts fake news, the evidence is being pushed into oblivion. The entire country is manipulated to look the wrong way. The result is devastating. Trust in institutions vanishes, truth becomes negotiable, and power remains the privilege of the same old faces. It's no coincidence that the government is also facing a credibility crisis. The economy is increasingly unstable, the healthcare system is on the brink of collapse, and promises of prosperity have turned to dust. The ordinary citizen who believed in change is now paying the price. Health insurance premiums soar, the cost of living strangles, and the empty rhetoric of "Make America Great Again" no longer convinces anyone. Because greatness isn't measured in slogans. It's measured in courage, and courage is what Trump's government has lost. And what about the congressman who stays silent? The Republicans who claim to love the truth but flee from it like the devil from the cross? They know what's at stake. They know that when the Epstein files are released, it won't just be Trump who falls. It will be an entire power network, built over decades, involving sacred, untouchable names protected by fortunes and influence. That's why the silence. That's why the fear. But there's one thing the government can't control: the people waking up. More and more Americans are realizing that the patriotic rhetoric they've heard for years was just theater. That the system isn't some distant thing. It's the very government that swore to fight it. Trump sold himself as the hero in the battle against corruption, but now he governs like the man with the most to lose if the truth comes out. And his fear is the greatest indication of guilt. The time has come to ask the question no one in Washington wants to hear. If Trump has nothing to hide, why the desperate effort to hide the files? Why the delays, the sabotage, the obstruction, the manipulation? Why not prove his innocence with transparency? The answer is simple. Because the truth is the greatest enemy of those who live on illusion. And this government thrives on it, on spectacle, on outrage, on emotional manipulation. What's missing is honesty. History will exact a heavy price for this silence. When a country allows political power to override justice, corruption stops being an accident, it becomes the rule. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. A government that lies to survive, manipulates to protect itself, and uses people's faith and hope as fuel for its own impunity. That's not patriotism. That's betrayal of the people's trust. That's why it's time to face the facts. The government that promised to drain the swamp has become the swamp itself. Trump is no longer the system's hunter. He's its guardian. And while the powerful remain protected, the ordinary citizen remains deceived. The future of the United States no longer depends on fiery speeches or recycled promises. It depends on the courage to look at the truth, even when it hurts. Because hiding the rot doesn't make it disappear, it only makes it stronger. If this government continues to choose silence, the American people will have to choose the opposite, to speak, to demand, to insist. Because the truth doesn't belong to Trump or Congress. It belongs to every citizen who still believes that justice and freedom aren't just words, but the duties of a nation that calls itself free.